Alright, Catus Maximus here. I ran into some used or old Harbor Freight stuff, and when I went, I'm also reviewing a couple newer items, even though I said I wouldn't shop at Harbor Freight much. People watch my Harbor Freight videos, so I figured every once in a while might be okay. These are made in China. They call these wheel hanger wheel hanger stud pilot pins, excuse me. But they're the same type of thing you can do if you just cut off a bolt. It's like an old mechanics trip where you cut off an extra bolt when you're mounting transmissions, suspension parts, all sorts of stuff, so that you have a pin that you can pilot on or slide the transmission or whatever on in order to get the bolt holes more lined up. Then you put on other bolts. These are advertised for wheels, so we have coarse and fine thread, both metric 12 millimeter and metric 14 millimeter. That does, and when it comes to threads, that means that this diameter here is indeed, on this one, was that 12 millimeter, and the nut or bolt or the hole is what's going to be smaller than 12 millimeter. Anyway, the idea is you just take this, and this is used a lot on German cars, BMWs, Mercedes, Volkswagens, even Volgas, and Russian cars do the same thing. I don't know why some manufacturers choose to use bolts to hold on their wheels where other manufacturers use studs, but these are mainly for German vehicles, but of course they can be handy in a variety of situations once again, such as suspension parts, transmissions, etc. And the one reason that these might be a bit better than cutting off the head of a bolt is one, that you do have knurling on these to thread them in and out, and that they're more designed for that. So they're actually turned down, then they have this bulge section. So the idea is that you thread it into the wheel stud. You start to get the wheel on. This being a smaller diameter makes it easier just to get the wheel on the edge of this, although I kind of worry about the knurling kind of scraping up the inside of the bore, but because most wheels are aluminum. Anyway, you slide it on, and then it hits this wider spot and kind of really centers it. And this is supposed to be measured, so when you have this down the bore, this is going to be pretty close to the surface, so the wheel is nice and centered on that. You can get a couple of the regular lug nuts or lug bolts if you're working with Volkswagens on. And then after you do that, then you just use the fingers to thread this out and then put in the last couple. So anyway, they do color code them, which I think was interesting. So we have fine thread is gold, coarse thread is black for 12 millimeter, and on the 14 millimeter it's satin for the coarse thread, and chrome for the fine thread. And if we take a look at all of these, they're actually not too bad. A bit of, they are Chinese, so we have a bit of inconsistency. Like on these satin ones, they did a nice job chamfering the end of the bolts there. But on like these two gold ones, you can see this one's been chamfered, and this one missed the chamfering. Same thing on these black ones. One's chamfered, one isn't chamfered, and that's just because they didn't have the offsets. Very good quality control in the machining. So most likely all these fasteners all came off the very same machine. It's just that some were pushed a little bit further in one direction than the other. So, and the same deal with the knurling, although I looked at a couple packages and this one seemed to be better, and indeed it is. The knurling is surprisingly consistent on these, considering some of the other inconsistencies. But for 25 bucks, I think they're a neat idea that they are some of the more common sizes of larger fasteners, and they can be used in just so many situations. And they do come with a little pouch, which I think is probably a good idea. What's also a good idea is, I had somebody comment if my cat is still alive, because I don't focus a lot on my cat and doing a lot of cat videos, but she is still alive. Here's my cat sleeping, and here's my cat sleeping with a bunch of heavy steel. She's pretty used to heavy steel, so apparently that doesn't make much of a difference to her. Sorry, Tiny. Don't mean to lay a bunch of heavy steel. There it is. Okay. So anyway, that was my little video, and to tell you the truth, I kind of saw these and thought they were a good idea, and thought the only better idea would be having just a set of these, not just for these 12 and 14 millimeter ones, but all sorts of different sizes, a big array from 6mm, probably all the way up to the largest fasteners, maybe 17mm or something like that, so that you could use them in a variety of situations, just basically having a much broader range. But nonetheless, I figured these could be handy in just so many situations, besides hanging wheels on German vehicles, German and Russian vehicles. So I'd figure I'd pick them up. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please, excuse me, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.